Hi, it's Ashleigh from Sweet Dreams Bake Shop, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a Lucky Charms box out of cookie. I've seen lots of these realistic food items and realistic items in general done with cake, but I don't see them as often done with cookies, so I decided to cut up my Lucky Charms box here so I can utilize it to trace. And this is often my process as well for gingerbread houses too. You make the whole thing out of cardboard and then you trace it. So basically this is all done for me. I really don't have to do too much extra work. Just kidding, it's about 3 more hours of extra work after this. All right, so anyway, we're getting into rolling out the sugar cookie dough, and this is just standard sugar cookie dough. It's my Earl Grey citrus flavor, and I'm not using construction gingerbread or anything with this, and it works out really, really well. Now, anytime you're working with doughs that need to be a very, very particular size and shape, you do want to make sure that you put it in the fridge. If you guys watched my organization video, you saw that I recently redid this part of my kitchen, and my husband just added in those lights for me too because it's quite dark in here. While that's baking in the oven, I'm going to get my royal icing ready, and basically I'm just using pipe and flood consistency the whole way through for this cookie. 1 cup of icing sugar to 1 tablespoon of meringue powder and just a little bit of water. I know I never give you a clear measurement for how much water you will use, and that is because there is no perfect amount. It's whatever amount works for you. I bake these cookies for a little bit longer just because they are larger in size. You will notice that the edges are slightly more brown than usual. That will happen, but this is for structural purposes. So I did bake these for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Because I have the right consistency, I don't have too much slipping and sliding going on with this royal icing. For the logo portion, it's basically just a giant royal icing transfer. So I took a piece of parchment paper and put it over top of that box piece, and now I'm tracing everything. Now I know this looks relatively straightforward, and it is, but it takes a lot of thinking in terms of knowing which parts to do first and which parts to layer. Now I am not looking for this to look perfectly smooth on top of the box. It is going to be a 3D pop out version. If you wanted it to be completely smooth like the box, you might as well just go with an edible image of some sort, or you would just paint it directly on. But this time around, I want this to be nice and 3D. So I'm doing all of the white parts first, and then I'm gonna work my way through the rainbow. My reason for doing this is actually to save piping bags. Now you'll notice that I am tracing all of the charms that are all around the rainbow here, but I actually end up later changing it because I don't like the way the charms end up looking. Some of the details on the box I do change, but for the most part, I keep it as is. Now I do want to make mention that with his face, because the nose and cheek area are more pop out, I do leave it and set it to dry, and then I add on his nose later. This is a technique that you can utilize for pretty much anything. If you have something that you have to copy that's quite large, as long as you have the actual photo of it, you can pretty much do it. It's all about the consistency of your icing as well. Earlier, I talked about pipe and flood consistency, which is basically the royal icing consistency that stays nice and puffy, but it doesn't have super defined lines or anything, so it all melts into one another. It took me years and years to actually be able to get to pipe and flood consistency properly. Now that the transfers are fully dry, and if you want to know how I dry these very quickly, go ahead and click that video in the right-hand corner. I'm just piecing it together onto this giant piece. Now you want to make sure that you choose the piece that ended up the flattest, and this side ended up nice and flat. So I'm going to put all of those things on with just a little bit of royal icing. At this point, I felt like I was mostly finished, but I end up doing a whole lot more detail. Now, you'll also notice that when I put the icing transfers on, they were all kind of broken apart. Don't worry, if you're doing something large and it breaks apart, chances are you're probably going to add a little bit more detail on there, so you'll be just fine. In order to add actual Lucky Charms to my cookie, I am actually putting on some Lucky Charms to this royal icing. For all the fine line painting that I'm doing, just to give it that realistic flair, I'm using my edible airbrush colors. As I mentioned before, if you were watching my live, I don't tend to use vodka mixed with edible food gel anymore just because I find this has the perfect consistency right away. However, I do still use that technique from time to time when it is called for. The reason that I showed you that white there is so that I could do this portion here. It's very difficult to actually get that color without having to remix all that icing again. So if you ever want to paint with opaque colors, make sure just to add a little bit of edible white food gel. I also put on a little bit of white edible food gel on here, and I just used kind of the residual that was left on my paintbrush to kind of create that little shiny look that the box has. I also ended up adding a little bit of fondant so that I could cover up those little patches that I didn't like where the charms were before. Now I'm using my sugar hack trick where I take the sugar and I melt it down, and I'm actually adding red to this so that I don't have any brown caramelized sugar showing out, just have some red showing if any leaks out. When I first showed this hack in my gingerbread house video, a lot of people asked if they had to add any water, and nope, it's literally just granulated sugar melted down. Now I do have to admit I wasn't super careful with my edges here. If I wanted to clean up my edges even more, you could add something like a strip of fondant, or you could even pipe more red royal icing to make sure that everything is super neat and tidy. But since this is just literally for me to enjoy and to look at, I decided I wouldn't be too picky this time around. However, if I were selling this, I would make sure that everything was super clean on all of the seams. I'm really nervous right now. This is the nerve-wracking part. So I'm gonna show you guys this just in case things go awry. Luckily, nothing ended up going awry. I wanted to go that little extra step further and put my little cereal bag into there, and you really just kind of have to squish it around. The space is basically the same size and everything as the actual box, so this could actually fit all the way down to the bottom. Now let's get into the pricing. So of course, if I made sure that all the seams were perfect and everything was super aligned, for a custom order only, this would be $250 Canadian. There is a lot of work that goes into this. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you can be part of the Sweetie fam. Right now, I'm uploading daily, so make sure you hit that notification bell so you know when I upload. Also, be sure to comment, request, or ask a question. I love hearing from you guys. Bye!